Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow Room. And this particular bit of overflow, as we're going backwards through the alphabet, we're still with the W's, it was motivated by the fact that I have tremendous admiration for the pianist Earl Wild. And Earl Wild's discography was just all over the place. You know, he never really had a major label contract that lasted very long, but he was one of the great pianists of the 20th century, had a real personality, and his biography is insanely entertaining, and he was really a character, absolutely a character. He called Lang Lang the J-Lo of classical music, which I thought was a marvelous remark and very apt at the time. Anyway, he was great. And he had a big, long life and made lots and lots of records. And finally, all of his stuff was amalgamated under his own label, Ivory Classics. But some of it's available and some of it isn't. And I don't know how they're doing. And their website, last time I checked and tried to order things, was kind of dysfunctional. And, I just don't know what was going on. And so for that reason, I tried to grab as much as I can and save it for posterity. And this is the piece of it that's in the Overflow Room. I mean, Wild is all over the place in my collection. He really is. But let's look at what we have here, and we'll have some fun because it's all just worth hearing. He was really one of the great romantic pianists, one of the last of that school. You know, he could improvise things, he could write his own stuff. He was just brilliant. He was really, really, of course, we all say he was the last. Well, Marc-André Hamelin is very similar in that respect, in his ability to be creative and recreative simultaneously. But Wild was of that school. Hamelin and the more modern people, they play that music, but they have a more, modern sensibility, maybe. I don't know if that means anything, but I'm just, bullshitting off the top of my head. So what do we got here? Earl Wild Goes to the Movies. I love this disc. I talked about this, I think, in Film Scores or something. It's got his arrangement of Richard Rodgers' Slaughter on 10th Avenue and Max Steiner's Symphony Moderne and Liszt's Un Sospiro, Etude number 3 in D flat, which he arranged with an orchestra, and Miklos Rosa's Spellbound Concerto, and Chopin's Grand Polonaise Brillante, Opus 22, and Mozart's Piano Concerto number 21, with Wild, of course, writing his own cadenzas. Nifty. The movie part of 21, of course, is that it's the Elvira Madigan Concerto. Then we have Mussorgsky, Pictures in an Exhibition, Mettner's Improvisation in B-flat minor, Opus 31, number 1, and Tchaikovsky, The Seasons. I said Mussorgsky Pictures, yes. It begins with Tchaikovsky's The Seasons. Lovely work. It's been orchestrated. It's really a wonderful, wonderful piece that doesn't get done as much as it ought to, so there you go. Then we've got Schumann, the complete symphonic etudes with the 5 posthumous variations, the Fantasy in C major, ooh, is that nifty, and the Toccata, recorded in concert in London in 1974. Michael Rowland Davis, who was Wild's amanuensis and his legatee, I guess you would call him, the executor of his estate, has handled Ivory Classics. He still does. Really nice guy. We've been in touch periodically. And, it's just great. And I have permission, actually, to play samples of this stuff from him, too. I'm afraid to. God knows what will happen. But, I do try. Then we have this wonderful disc of 20th and 21st century piano sonatas. The Barber Sonata, Stravinsky Sonata, Earl Wild's own Sonata from 2000, which is loads of fun, and Hindemith's Sonata number 3. Not your usual Earl Wild material. But the wonderful thing about Earl Wild is that he was boundlessly fascinated with music. He lived music, and it really didn't matter what period it was from or what it was. He had the technique and the intellectual curiosity. He wasn't just a barn-burning virtuoso. He was a smart virtuoso, very smart virtuoso. And so, selective in his choice of 20th century repertoire, but I'm glad he did. Then we've got Brahms, Piano Sonata number 3, 4 intermezzi. They're from the various, late opus, Opus 117, 119, and Opus 76, the Ballade in G minor, Opus 118, number 3, the Rhapsody in G minor, Opus 79, number 2, and the Paganini Variations, books 1 and 2. Isn't that cool? I love the Paganini variations. Oh, this is fascinating. I got like 3 of these because I didn't know how long it would last. Rinaldo Hahn, Le Rossignol Éperdu, 53 poems for piano. Now, of course, since Earl Wild made this recording, a couple others have turned up. But this is still, I think, the one to get. It's just marvelous. And the fact that he, late in his life, turned to Rinaldo Hahn and did this 2 CD set of, it's more than 2 hours, 2 hours and 12 minutes or so, 13 minutes of 53 little poems for piano. They're marvelous little works. Oh my goodness. Rinaldo Hahn, Le Rossignol Éperdu. If you don't know it, grab it. You should hear it. You really should. Let's see. The Virtuosity of Earl Wild. Oh, this is a 2 CD set of Liszt, Tchaikovsky, Moszkowski, Chopin, Dochnani, Mendelssohn, and Eugène d'Albert. Eugène d'Albert actually had the most wonderful story about him. I think it's with him. He married Teresa Carreño, the great Venezuelan pianist, and they had a very volatile relationship. And they weren't married for that long, I don't think, but they had a bunch of kids. And famously, Teresa got up one day and came home he came home and she was there and she said, "Darling, I think my children and your children are quarreling with our children again." It was quite the thing. But d'Albert was like a childhood maniac. I mean, there's stories about him as a youngster being trained by Liszt. As a composer, he was actually fairly conservative. I mean, he's famous for the opera Tiefland and then a lot of piano things. But this is fun. I mean, you can hear some of the stuff here. So that's d'Albert. Liszt. Oh, yes. Earl Wild doing Liszt is just what you have to have. I mean, you just have to if you love Liszt. These are the 1985 sessions containing the Dante Sonata, the 3 Petrarch sonnets, Le Jeu d'eau à la Villa d'Est, the Ballad No. 2, 2 Liebesträume, Un Sospiro, and the Bach Liszt Fantasia Fugue in G minor, the Sonata in B minor. A very fine performance of it, and a fairly quick one, 28 minutes, 27 seconds, very impulsive. Die Lorelei, Funérailles, Chopin Liszt, My Joys, Mephisto Polka, and Consolation No. 3 in D flat. A big, juicy 2.5 hours really of music on there. It's just Chopin Nocturnes. I mean, Wild was one of the great Chopinists. And so we have the Nocturnes here. This is a wonderful set. We have our favorite sets, generally speaking, Moravec, Claudio Arrau, and, people like that. But this is hot stuff as well. So that's wonderful. And that was the new one. Was it Stephen Huff or Stephen Osborne? Stephen Huff, I think, did them for Hyperion. It was beautiful, too. Earl Wild Recital. Let's see. Mozart Sonata in F major, Alessandro Marcello, transcribed by Earl Wild. Beethoven C minor variations, Balakirev Sonata No. 1, Chopin's 4 impromptus, and Wild arranged it. The Mexican Hat Dance. Yeah, what an encore. Super cool. Virtuoso Piano Transcriptions. This is just also essential Wild. He was one of the great transcribers that ever transcribed. So this is more than fun. He transcribed Saint-Saëns, Le Rouet d'Omphale, the Harmonious Blacksmith, the Larghetto from Chopin's Second Piano Concerto, Rachmaninoff's Midsummer Nights, the paraphrase on Sleeping Beauty, Fauré, Improvisation après un rêve, Bach, Wild, Hommage à Poulenc. Okay, whatever that is, the Serenade from Don Giovanni, and like all kinds of other things. It's just wonderful fun. Then Wild does Beethoven. He wasn't known as a Beethovenian, but he played Beethoven as wonderfully as he played anybody else. The Sonata No. 7, Opus 10 No. 3, Sonata No. 23 in F minor, and Beethoven Liszt Symphony No. 1. Isn't that juicy? And trust me, juicy it is. And finally, this is one of the old Chesky things. Chesky had a bunch of Earl Wild stuff, including the Rachmaninoff piano concertos and, things like that, Liszt piano concertos. So this is the Liszt Hungarian Fantasy, the Saint-Saëns Second Piano Concerto, and the Grieg Piano Concerto in A minor. These were, I think, those Reader's Digest recordings or something like that. He did a lot of stuff like that. And I just got them because Chesky was sort of disappearing. They went out of business. And I wanted the Earl Wild stuff. I have all the others sitting in my main collection somewhere, but that's where they are. So that's Earl Wild. The overflow of Earl Wild. The main body of Earl Wild is the main collection. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.